This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Evan Jansen. This show is always live and broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, we're also streaming live on YouTube right now with the show available on demand on our YouTube channel if you want to watch back a little bit later. Now today, we look at a report in a Nigerian science journal that blames the church collapse that killed 81 South Africans last year on a sonic weapon. Today we ask you, what do you think caused the building collapse in Nigeria last year? At SABC Newsroom, that's where you interact with us. Then we look at young buyers who are driving an upswing in the country's property market. We look at the circus and ask if it still has a place in today's world. We close with a look at sport with Julian and a live performance from Major Steez. Should be a very interesting end to the show. But first, let's get the day's news.
Good morning, I'm Anine Dormal. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. It's D-Day for National Police Commissioner Ria Piecha. Piecha has until the end of business today to let the President know why her fitness to hold office should not be looked into. This following the recommendation made by the Marikana Commission. The President intends setting up an inquiry following the recommendations of the Marikana Commission looking into the deaths of 34 people at Marikana in August 2012. Parliament's ad hoc committee on Nkandla is expected to submit its final report to the National Assembly on August the 7th. It will not call any other witnesses to appear before it, including Public Protector Thuli Madonsela. Meanwhile, the ANC says it will not apologize for saying the Public Protector's Nkandla report is misleading. The ANC Chief Whip, Batole Moshecha, also told the committee that this does not have to amount to an attack on Madonsela.
We went to see for ourselves and came up with different opinions to her opinion. Now, these differences of opinion cannot amount to an attack on her report or attack on her person.
More evidence of the injuries Mira Masia sustained before his death will be given to the High Court in Pretoria. This as a doctor is expected to take the stand this morning in the Masia trial. Yesterday, a defense in the trial of the murdered Mozambican taxi driver proposed the testimony of one of the state's key witnesses. It was argued that Mpunzi Ngamlana, who was on duty at the Davidson police station cells when Masia was brought in, changed his statements to protect himself from prosecution. There's hope that a wage agreement between gold mining companies and trade unions will be signed next week. All the unions, including AMCU, have agreed to consult their members about the latest and final offer tabled by the employers.
We believe the members must take the final decision on this matter. It's not that we are going to sell it, we are going to report to the members.
When we started negotiations, they came with that offer which they did not move. At least they have moved, which shows that there is a positive attitude towards negotiations.
And reports suggest the dentist who killed Cecil, the beloved lion, could be extradited to Zimbabwe. More than 40,000 people have signed a White House petition calling for Walter Palmer to be extradited to face the might of the law for the killing. The killing of Cecil the lion has also triggered a probe by U.S. authorities. The probe by America's Fish and Wildlife Service will establish if the hunt was part of a conspiracy to violate U.S. laws against illegal wildlife trading. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for SABC Newsroom. You can also find us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anine. Now, this week, the International Journal of Scientific Engineering and Research questioned the verdict of a Lagos State Coroner's Court ruling at the tragic collapse of a guest house at the Synagogue Church of All Nations, Scone, last year was due to structural failure. In an edition titled The Elimination of Structural Failure and the Placement of Chemical Explosives Weapons expert Paul Iguniwe says the collapse was caused by an infrasonic weapon. Iguniwe, who is a lecturer at the Kaduna Polytechnic College of Science and Technology, argued that the only viable scientific option to explain the unique nature of the controversial collapse was an infrasonic weapon. Lagos State Magistrate Oyatado Komalafe ruled the collapse was as a result of structural failure, of course. This verdict the church strongly opposed, insisting the building was sabotaged. Now, Paul Iguniwe joins us from Benin City, south of Nigeria, via Skype to quickly give us his views. A very good morning to you, Paul. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Just tell us the evidence that made you come to the conclusion that you did. What was that?
Basically, why I came to that conclusion was the fact that when I looked at the whole scenario, I discovered that the church position was not tenable because the church believed that explosives were placed in the building, and that's why it came down. And using forensic explosives knowledge, I was able to eliminate by just looking at the video and visiting the site that couldn't have happened because there are certain signatures we look out for once there's an explosion, and those signatures were not found at the site of the collapsed building. Then, alternatively, the government's position has been that the building was as a result of poor engineering development. And that also, when we looked at it critically, we discovered that the way the building came down is not consistent with a structure that is as a result of poor materials. And on inspection of the foundations, we discovered that the foundation was as if it snapped off. There was no crack, there was no stress. And then, consequently, Lagos State Materials Laboratory testing results showed to a high level that the material structure and the materials used in the construction were in order. So it generated a lot of controversial, sentimental positions here in Nigeria. And I've been a scientist with interest in such occurrences. I took a personal interest and I looked at the video site. And that led to my conclusion. Wait a minute, there was this uncertified flying aircraft that flew over the building severally and then flew for the last time. After 30 minutes, the building came down. And after extensive research, I came to that conclusion. Possibly, and I believe that that's what happened, that plane was carrying an infrasonic weapon of an infrasonic generator and fired repeatedly over the building. And once the building at the atomic level absorbs such energy, resonance takes place, which at a very high energy can cause such a uniform crumbling collapse. It's very important that we understand how the building came down. That's what led to the strong evidence I gave at the coroner's court. And I decided to go further by testing my principles in an international journal, away from Africa, outside Africa. And to my delight, it was accepted and it was published.
But Paul, I want to ask you, you're a man of science, a man who deals with evidence and international benchmarks, as you just mentioned. I want to ask you, in this case, what international benchmarks did you look at for the use of this weapon when you did your research? I'm asking specifically, do you have any video or photographic evidence of an infrasonic weapon being used anywhere else in the world in your research to prove that this could be possible?
Okay. When I did my research, apart from the fact that the Americans, the Russians, are deeply into infrasonic weapon research, the closest we have is that of a Russian parabola sonic weapon, which you can find on net. Don't forget, it's not a weapon that anybody can just lay hand on it. But so far, the one we have is on the internet. You can find it in one of my citations, where you see a parabolic antenna, which has the capability of firing sonic pulse, which is a form of an infrasonic weapon. And as we may know, what comes to the limelight or what comes to the knowledge of the people via the news media is almost nothing, almost incomparable to the things that we don't know about. A lot of research are going on. Currently, they are doing smart weapons, drones that can target individuals with miniature weapons. You don't see that on the news, but it's been done. We know from body language of these nations and the tests they're carrying out. So based on that, I personally have not handled an infrasonic weapon. A few people do, few nations even have access to it. But it has been used, different forms of this energy has been used in the past. It has been used in crowd control in Ireland. The French has also used it as an anti-riot control weapon. And then the Russians have tested a variation of that. And the Americans are also deeply funding such research. So based on that has happened in the last, the Americans took a strong position in 1997. So from then till now, a lot of research are going on, and we do not know how deep, if you read my submission, you do not know how deep this research has gone to. So for me, I believe that it exists there, and it's clandestine, and therefore it's not in the public domain.
I thank you for joining us. That is the man who wrote this report, who says that he believes, in his opinion, that a sonic weapon, either by the Russians or Americans, have caused the building to collapse now. Of course, 81 South Africans were amongst the 116 people killed on September 12 of last year when the 6-story guest house belonging to the Synagogue Church of All Nations in Lagos, led by preacher T.B. Joshua, collapsed. Now, church representatives are here in South Africa. Bali Chwene and Kirsten Nematendani are with us this morning. They with architect, man with more than 50 years experience, Derek Garvey. They're here in the studio with me this morning to talk about the latest scientific research into this. Mr. Nematendani, if I can start with you, just give us your overview with how you view the latest information, as it were.
Good morning to you, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me say I was privileged to have been out there at the synagogue and saw the collapsed building. And fortunate enough, at the time we had Dr. Ntonga, an engineer from Tanzania, who took us through the structure itself, in particular the foundation. I personally saw how intact that foundation was, nothing that shows any cracks, showing that the structural failure issue should be ruled out. And I must say it was a privilege to have been there with the families that were affected. And all of us came to a conclusion that it would appear the reasons given by the coroner on the structural failure does not really qualify for the building. In particular, comparing it with various or previous structural failures, because the way the building came down in few seconds, and of course the dust smoke fits exactly. I think we saw about 10 to 11 examples of such, and that's why we feel this seemed to be the solution.
Mr. Chwene, it's now clear that you believe it's a terrorist attack that caused this building to collapse. Has anybody claimed responsibility for this terrorist attack that you say? And if not, why not?
Thank you very much. And before I answer that particular question, I think let me just correct two very important aspects that you missed there. Firstly, Paul is not a Nigerian scientist. He's a scientist by himself. The article that he published is in the International Engineering, Science and Technology. That's the first thing. Secondly, what he's saying is that not the Americans or the Russians caused the building to collapse. That technology has been used by these particular two countries. Now, when it comes to the issue of someone claiming responsibility for what has occurred, you have heard, of course, previously some insinuations from various organizations. I speak here from the Niger Delta, who have said that, you know, they know as a matter of fact that some of the organizations who are fighting for their own rights in some of the Niger region, have claimed some kind of responsibility for this. And that information has been presented to the Nigerian authorities for them to be able to investigate. And we're hoping that particular investigation will consummate to a particular conclusion to bring finality to this unfortunate event.
Mr. Garvey, you've got more than 50 years' experience. Just tell us, how do you view, firstly, the collapse itself, and then what has followed after?
Thank you very much. There's no question in my mind that it was a controlled demolition. You know, there are different ways to take down a building of that size. 51 years ago in Durban, they used to do it with a hammer and then sell all the things they extracted from the building. This was an implosion that was controlled, as was done with me in Durban 50 years ago. So there's no doubt about that. When the building falls in on itself in a cloud of dust, it cannot be anything else other than
So you talk about demolition is something different from a sonic weapon being used. In this case, we're being told it's a sonic weapon that's being used to collapse this building. So it can't be a demolition where explosives would be placed on the inside. How do you see that in science?
All I know is I don't know exactly how the method, whether this suspicion of it being taken down by a Star Wars approach, or whether it was done in a conventional way. It was an imploded, controlled demolition. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Mr. Nematandani, we have to look at where else, of course, in the world this kind of thing has happened, and which organizations would have this kind of advanced science that you guys mentioned and that is looked at in this report. Have you found any evidence of that around the world, either video or photographic for that matter?
Look, I think what we have as concrete is the fact that any controlled demolition will bring a structure down symmetrically in few seconds, and there will always be the dust smoke that you see, and it's similar. It looks like ashes, and that fits that description. Of course, the researcher would give us more evidence, and as you can see, the research article is actually approved by international board members, and the editorial board members come from the US, Russia, and all the major countries. Those are people who spend their time in labs, and they have evidence, and what more can you look for if your experts come up and say, indeed, we agree with the facts. That's what we have.
The facts that you're putting forward is a sonic weapon.
Correct.
Therefore, the onus would be on you to produce this weapon and to show to the world how this weapon, Mr. Chwene, can make a building collapse.
You know, like Mr. Paul mentioned, this kind of an equipment is not an equipment that you can randomly find anywhere else. It's a very highly sophisticated equipment. Now, there's a very important point that Mr. Danzas mentioned here, that this organization, the International Organization Engineering of Science and Technology, you cannot have organizations like NASA, top-notch international American scientists who sit on the editorial committee who approves any article that comes in here. You need to go into the website to be able to see the ratio
I'll ask you a simple question, Mr. Chwene. Please answer the question.
I'm coming to that.
It's the second time you're doing this. Now, just answer the question.
Okay. I'm coming because it's important not to be able to do this. Now, the fact of the matter is, you have scientists who say, as a matter of fact, this is how this particular building collapsed.
I've just asked you, Mr. Chwene, about how you're going to put this evidence forward to the world, because there are people that haven't seen this kind of weapon that you say. I have no doubt that it exists.
Absolutely. Let me
there's technology of this kind.
Perhaps I should come in. The point is not for the church to try and prove whether this is the fact. It is for those that have the skills to prove to the rest of the world. The church it's a victim in this instance. It was taken to court, and the evidence was given, and the church was saying that is not correct evidence. In view of the many findings in terms of the engineers, those are expert. What more do you need if you have expert? And that's why in every court system, when you have a situation, you called upon experts. We had a very interesting case about Pretorius. The whole case was reconstructed. Why? Because you needed experts to come and tell you, yes, the bullet went this way, this was the door. But that was not necessary. You expect the expert to give you that evidence. We have used the expert as church, and we think we have done our part in as far as that is concerned.
No, the church, you've gone out of your way to look at this. This is why I ask a simple question. You've gone out of your way, therefore you should close the book by putting forward the final argument, which is this is a sonic weapon, this is how it works, and this is how it makes a building collapse. This is the simple thing that I'm putting to you, Mr. Twene. You're rejecting the court's findings.
Yes.
And as Africans, we want to know, what is the way forward now?
Okay. Simply the way forward, say, is that the church has taken a very considered view on the matter and has therefore opted to go for what you call a judicial review of the coroner's findings. And those particular proceedings, as we speak, they are on the way in Nigeria. The matter will be in due course. Once we are allocated a date at the High Court, the matter will be argued there.
In conclusion, Mr. Nimatandani, you have the floor to speak to South Africa and the rest of Africa on this channel to give us your final views on this matter and how yourself and TB Joshua would like to close the book on what was a very dark day for South Africa.
Once again, we'd like to say to the viewers out there, we've been very clear from the onset that at some stage the truth will come out. And this is a process towards the truth that we've been talking about.
I thank you for coming and being so frank with us today, and to putting it forward to us. That is Mr. Bali Twene, who sits in the middle, and Mr. Kirsten Nematandani, who is representing the Synagogue Church of All Nations here in South Africa. And with them is Mr. Derek Garvey, who's an architect with more than 50 years' experience here in South Africa, talking about the building collapse. I think everyone has covered this. Let's take a look. The question that we asked you at home, what do you think caused the building collapse in Nigeria last year? These are some of the views that you've sent in this morning. Zotani says at SABC Newsroom, the collapse was caused by greed. TB Joshua failed to extend his Scone building by doing it right because he wanted to save money. That one from Zotani Similani. Frank Matt says at SABC Newsroom, I think the Nigerian Scone church collapse is the foundation, because in Nigeria it is always, but not every day, raining, says Frank Matt. Emma Sesh says, SABC Newsroom, the collapse was caused by bad infrastructure. Many flaws on a foundation fit for less, I think. Another one says, it must be the foundation which caused the collapse, because almost every day it is raining in Nigeria. Of course, the church have put forward their argument. They say a sonic weapon fired from an aircraft is what caused the building to disintegrate and collapse in on itself. We will continue running the question of the day. What do you think caused the building to collapse in Nigeria on that fateful day, September 12 of last year? 116 people lost their lives, 81 of them South Africans. Hopefully we can all move on now. Today's pick of the day comes from Revolution News, captioned, ultra-Orthodox Jew stabs 6 people at Jerusalem's Pride Parade for the second time. Yes, an horrific attack it was. There you see people scurrying all over as one crazed knife-wielding man rips in amongst the innocents. Let's take a look at the front pages from around the globe. We start in Europe. The Times. British troops and police from forces across the south of England are to join efforts to tackle the growing Channel Tunnel crisis in Kent. Then in Israel, the Jerusalem Post talks about that report. 6 people who were stabbed at the annual Jerusalem Gay Pride Parade yesterday by an ultra-Orthodox man who perpetrated a similar stabbing at the 2005 march. Then finally in China, the South China Morning Post says relatives of Chinese passengers on board a Malaysia Airlines plane that went missing 16 months ago now were waiting anxiously last night for confirmation that aircraft debris found on the island of Reunion in the southern Indian Ocean was from the jetliner. The world is holding its breath that might be the end of that mystery. Anyhow, let's take a look at what's happening around the country in South Africa today. In Johannesburg, where a 14-year-old boy who went on a shooting rampage in Berea, here in the inner city, is expected to appear in the Hillbrow Magistrates Court on charges of attempted murder and the possession of an unlicensed firearm after he shot and injured a man and a woman last week Thursday. Then, In Cape Town, 2 men are expected to appear in the Khayelitsha Magistrates Court for the fatal stabbing of Hawks member Warrant Officer Petrus Johannes Holtz on the N2 near Makassar. Then we stay in Cape Town. Seskona People's Rights Movement leader Andile Lili is expected to appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court. Lili, known for his role in the so-called Poo protest at Cape Town International Airport 2 years ago now, was on Wednesday arrested on a charge of inciting violence after encouraging his supporters to kill criminals immediately and brutally. Now, before we go to a break, some good news. Former President Thabo Mbeki visited Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu at Cape Town Hospital yesterday. Here you have a pic of the 83-year-old cleric who was readmitted to hospital on Tuesday after complaining of discomfort. In good spirits, he's been put on bed rest for a few days while doctors observe his condition. His daughter, Reverend Mpho Tutu, says they have been moved by the support they've received in the past few weeks from people across the world. The Tutu family says they are hoping that he could be back home as early as next week. What a lovely picture. Isn't it nice to see the Arch laughing and smiling as we've always known him to? You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back with you after a short little break.
People, we are getting there, and thanks to you, Pati is set to become our country's 12th official language. Here's today's word. Substitute. Replacing a drinking buddy with somebody more fun. It's more like it.
Hey you, smooth supporter, get a bottle of Jameson for only $244.99 and help make Party South Africa's 12th official language. Tops at Spa. Shake things up.
From humble beginnings, this selfless icon altered the history of the world, freed a country, and united a nation. He taught us humility and forgiveness. To the world, he is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. But to us, he is simply Tata Madiba.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. It's D-Day for National Police Commissioner Ria Piecha. Piecha has until the end of business today to let the President know why her fitness to hold office should not be looked into. This following the recommendation made by the Marikana Commission. Parliament's ad hoc committee on Kandla is expected to submit its final report to the National Assembly on August the 7th. It will not call any other witnesses to appear before it, including Public Protector Thuli Madonsela. And more evidence of the injuries Mido Masia sustained before his death will be given in the High Court in Pretoria. This as a doctor is expected to take to the stand this morning in the Masia trial. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just remember to search for SABC Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shani. Now, buying a home can often be a difficult process, and for first-time buyers, the task is even more daunting. But South Africa's property market has achieved stability in recent months, and research shows that in 2012, 23% of buyers were from a much younger age group. This increase in first-time buyer activity in South Africa, particularly within commuting distance between cities, is having a positive effect on the country's property markets. To tell us a little bit more about this and to give us a few tips to those of you that are thinking about buying a home, we're joined by Alta van der Walt from Daisy House this morning. Good morning, Alta. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We talk about a younger group of people buying homes. Who are this younger group that's now buying homes? Where do they come from?
That your younger age is 20 to mid-30s, your first-time home buyer. And we found that it's more female that's buying now the last couple of years. The young mothers, single mothers, that's buying property now.
So it's a young women that are more responsible in today's world. Is that what we are seeing?
Yeah, they take a bit more responsibility.
What are you seeing in terms of trends? What types of houses are driving this boom? Is it houses? Is it flats, townhouses? What are young professionals interested in?
We found that security complexes, security estates, people are buying into that. Security is very important nowadays, and so they tend to go for the security complexes.
And young people, of today, they've got access to lots of information, so they make much more informed choices, one would think. What are the kind of areas, especially say in the big city like Johannesburg, Pretoria, what kind of areas are more favoured?
We found that there's a property boom in the whole of the East Rand, Kempton Park. There's a lot of development going on there. And then we also found that people are looking to buy close to their workplace. With traffic nowadays and with petrol and everything, people want to live close to their workplace. And we found that that's a definite trend.
When we talk about the South African property market that has stabilized in recent times, what do we mean by that?
It means that people are looking at buying a house, a smaller house, more affordable. They don't go with all these fancy houses anymore, and the house at the sea is not in anymore. And I think because of the NRC that's now stabilized and people know what's the concerns of the Credit Act and all that they really look after their financial position and do some research before they buy.
Now, when young professionals start thinking about buying a home in terms of finance, how much money should they have saved? How do you decide whether a property is affordable for you?
To decide what is affordable is people need to know what is their finance situation. You need round about between 10 and 20% for a deposit on a property. There is some banks that will give you a 100% loan depending on your financial history that you've got. If you've got a very good financial history, you can get away with a 100% bond. But if you start looking at a house and you need to know what amount of money you need, you can look more or less at about 10% for a deposit and another 6% for all your legal fees, the move and everything.
Yeah, the transfer costs and all that sort of thing. Now, what other advice in the current market conditions would you give to first-time home buyers? What kind of documents do you need? What kind of agent do you have to look for? That sort of thing. The gold nuggets in the industry, I'm asking you.
Yeah, the first thing is information. Information is power. And if you make sure that you've got an ID and a clear copy of your ID, because that's always a problem with the FICA. And if you've got 3 months of your salary slips, 3 to 6 months of your bank account statement, and that's usually the bank account that your salary is being paid in.
Yeah.
And then you need to make sure that you've got proof of your property where you stay. You're going to need these documents for about 3 months, and everybody's going to ask their documents. If you make sure you've got it ready and beforehand, you're not running around and battling to get all the information. Make sure you've got it beforehand. And then find an agent that gives you all the advice that you need. No matter if you buy through that agent or not, at least they give you the information. Yeah. And the more questions you ask, the more comfortable you will be in buying a house, and this whole process won't be a nightmare.
Well, Alta, thank you for joining us today. It's very nice of you to give us the inside info, and it's nice to know that, you know, finally the property market in South Africa is settling down a little bit, and young people can now make a real splash in the market. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, of course, that disturbing story a little bit earlier, an ultra-Orthodox Jewish man who'd recently been released from prison after serving 10 years for stabbing participants in the annual Gay Pride Parade in 2005. Well, he struck again yesterday, stabbing 6 marchers in this year's parade. Here is what you are saying about this story. Some say it's total craziness. Rebecca Bowring says, trying to wrap my head around the fact that Orthodox Jerusalem knife wielder had attacked in 05, served 10 years, freed 3 weeks ago, and at the attacks again. So much so for rehabilitation in prison. Biner says, I guess his experience in prison was not all that bad. Talking about Jerusalem stabbing. Maybe he wants to go back. Yes. David Alexander says, no. Attacker 6 LGBTI Israelis at Jerusalem Pride March. A hate crime and an act of terrorism. Call it out for what it is, he says. The man who stabbed gays in Jerusalem appears to have attacked gays before. That one from Creative Gay. Yes, it's caused quite a stir, this attack in Jerusalem yesterday. Now for an interesting one. For centuries, traveling circuses entertained audiences across the world. And for many of us, the circus often brings back nostalgic memories of our own childhood. But as the times changed and technology consumed our lives, so the idea of the traveling circus began to lose its shine. But it seems that today, the idea of a traveling or traditional big-top traveling circus is making its way back by popular demand, offering live entertainment and good old family fun. Now, our producer, Rene Vest, went to the circus and filed this report.
The smell of popcorn and candy floss fills the air, and dust starts to rise as people make their way into the giant marquee. Clowns hand out balloons to excited children, and people stand in long queues at the ticket office for their chance to see a traveling circus. This year, the McLaren Circus is celebrating 10 years of performance, and with sold-out shows, it certainly seems like the idea of the traveling circus is making a popular comeback. Founder David McLaren followed his childhood dreams of owning his own circus, and today the McLaren Circus is the largest traveling circus in Africa.
I believe traveling circuses are making a comeback. It's good, clean, old-fashioned entertainment. You can smell it, you can feel it, you can taste it to the candy floss. I encourage kids to get off their cell phones, get off their PCs, get off the television, and actually get off their bums and come and see live entertainment.
But whenever a traveling circus comes to town, the spotlight turns to the use of wild animals instead of the performers. Last month, the Scottish Government announced the results of a public vote in which 98% of people voted against the use of wild animals in circuses.
We are a performing arts, which happens to include performing animals. The circus is not the only place that has performing animals. You see them on film performing. They perform every day at horse shows, dog shows. A lot of zoos and a lot of animal parks have wild animals performing acts and tricks as part of their educational shows. So wild animals and domesticated animals are on show all the time, everywhere around the world. We take the best care of our animals. The animals are our livelihood. Their welfare is of utmost importance to us at all times. Although we've got snippets of the animals, they are not the entire show.
Francesca Lizard has been working in the circus industry for more than 45 years.
For me, it is the best thing to move around, see new places, new people, and it's not easy in life too. It's very, very, very hard.
Francesca and her late husband worked together in the circus, and although it's been nearly 2 years since he passed away, she still performs to make him proud.
And walking there, I smile. People don't even know there's pain inside. The pain inside you, and that is in circus, the artists. You give everything that you can.
Months of preparation goes into putting on a good show, and although many performers feel that they do not get the credit they deserve, the traveling circus becomes their life.
How do you view the circus? Does it still have a place in this world, today's world? Send us your views at SABC Newsroom. We'd love to hear what you say. We'll play those on Monday. Now time for a look at what's on our Facebook page. There's a strong hope that a wage agreement between gold mining companies and trade unions will be signed next week. All the unions, including AMCU, the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, have agreed to consult their members about the latest and final offer tabled by employees yesterday. Then, Women's March veteran and anti-apartheid activist Sophie de Bruyn says she's humbled and honoured to be able to make a contribution to the upliftment of women. And of course, plane debris washed up on the French island of Reunion in the Indian Ocean is almost certain to be part of a Boeing 777. This potentially the biggest breakthrough in the search for the missing flight MH370. All of that on our Facebook page and more. Time for us to take a short break. When we come back, we talk action cricket, and we've got some very interesting guests here with us this morning. Don't go away.
SABC News seeks to be the biggest, the most extensive and diverse news organisation on the continent. Our mission is to provide accurate and credible news and current affairs programming throughout the day. We are committed to covering every part of the continent. We reflect the world to Africa and Africa to the world. SABC News, Africa's news leader. Now available throughout the continent.
Welcome back. Now, as always, to talk all things sport on a Friday, we're joined by Eye2Eye senior partner Julian Delahunt. Today, we take a closer look at action cricket because it's raining in Bangladesh again. It looks like a second test is going to be a washout. Now, the Action Cricket Championships will take place in September, and for this, we have a couple of special guests. But Julian, it's over to you. Your show today.
Great, Evan. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So this morning we've got a bunch of the guys from the action cricket arena, and specifically looking forward to the World Series, which is happening in September in Australia. And with me here we've got Mark Ongers, who is the senior coach or head coach of the under-14 team. We've got a couple of the guys vice captain and captain of the under-14 team, and then we've got the vice captain of the under-18 team. Mark, tell us a little bit about this tournament. It's in Australia. Maybe a little bit about action cricket and where we're going as a country.
Sure, man. The tournament's held in Brisbane this year. It's they have it every 3 years. We have it in different countries around the world, the action cricket playing countries. This is a good tournament for us because ostensibly it's in the home of indoor cricket. We want to try and take the title in the backyard. It really is an opportunity for, especially the under-14 side, we've got a really strong side, to actually win an indoor title. Australia, over the years, has been in charge of that. They have the honours of that. We've only had two, over the history of indoor cricket, we've only won it twice, South Africa. The rest is Australia, and I think once New Zealand. So we really are looking forward to bringing something home this year.
Okay, excellent. And action cricket is general in South Africa? Is it on the uptake?
Yeah, it's big in Australia. It's not as big in South Africa. Cricket Australia actually supports indoor cricket hugely overseas. A large number of the outdoor players start off at indoor cricket. I know it's not a good recommendation based on the Ashes series at the moment, but 7 of the players that are in the Ashes team now started their career off at indoor cricket. We're looking for more and more support as time goes by from Cricket South Africa, and hopefully the sport will continue to grow.
Okay. And obviously, as the coach of an under-14 team, you've only got a number of camps, a few camps before you head off to a big tournament like this. How do you, when we talk sports psychology, we talk about team identity and team cultures. How do you go about developing a bit of a team culture, remaining focused in these environments in a very short period of time?
Yeah, the first thing that we've got to remember is that we're playing in Australia, and it's like Christian gladiators in a Roman arena. These kids are going to be under huge pressure from the Australians, the players and the public that are going to surround that net. We've been together my team have been together for the last 6 years, you know, and we've played in the interprovincials. We've just waited for them to become of age to play in a World Cup. So we have a really good ethos on the side, and we've won a few gold medals as IPT players. So we're fairly confident that the ethos in the team is capable of doing what we need to do. We've got a great captain, a great vice captain, and a great team. And these guys have really been a strong unit together. 5 camps up into the period that we leave, we think is enough to prepare ourselves for this tournament.
Awesome. Maybe just over to some of the youngsters, the under-18 side. How are you guys going to remain calm, and how are you going to keep your team focused? You're the vice captain of the team. Obviously, there's going to be a relative influence from your side. How are you going to keep you guys focused in a hostile Australian environment?
Yeah, as the last couple of years we played together as a team and against each other, so that's how we can keep ourselves just calm and enjoy it and motivate ourselves.
Awesome. Yeah, very, very good. So I mean, Eben, I don't know if you...
Yeah, I want to ask the little guys. Is that the first time you guys are going to go overseas?
Yes, my first time.
Your first time, yours?
Our second time.
You're seasoned traveller, eh? And Australia, how are you guys looking forward to Australia? It's a tough place to go play sport. They're like very competitive there. Are you looking forward to that?
Yes, I very much am.
Well, they look like they've got a bit of chutzpah, Coach. What's your prediction for September?
I think every coach likes to think that they can win a World Cup, and but there's no doubt about it. Australia's going to be really, really tough. Being in Australia, the home teams have the opportunity of putting in a development side, so they'll have 2 sides. Australia will have 2 sides, and they've got a lot of guys playing action cricket. So their aim will be to put 2 sides into the final. Our aim is to get to the final, and I think if we get to the final, we'll give them a run for their money.
Awesome. What are you guys looking forward to most?
Well, I'm looking forward to go to Australia and look at all the animals and the beautiful country. So yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, yeah, very good.
Well, Julian, before I let you go, I've got to ask you about the derby today. Don't tell me you're telling me Chiefs going to win the derby tomorrow.
No, well, again, the last time I made a prediction on this show, it went horribly wrong. So I'm not doing any predictions. I think early season stuff. So
okay, your money is safe. I'll say bucks for life, forever, buck. Anyhow, time for the performance of the week now. The period between childhood and adult age is what youth is called. Today, we have a group of young guys calling themselves Major Steez. Well, they've got an album dedicated to the youth, and they're performing their track. It's called Party Time. Fantastic. Let's take away the Friday.
When you see me in my head, this is party time. When the circle getting bigger, it's a party time. Holy in the air, it's a party time. We've been on the tables and chairs, it's a party time. Hiding from the police, it's a party time. Everybody in the streets, it's a party time. Hey, it's a party time. Hey, it's a party time. Selling in the store, so I'm trying to explore. Listen, baby girl, your friends, but I'm bored. Running through the city with the woes, manora. Girls, she's a butterface like Flora. And now we coming for your daughters. Listen to places that I don't miss with the order. The chances are 1 in a million. But in touch my chances, so touch my the San Diego kid. Yes, can't apply. Tired of all of my exes. I ain't
Major Steez, yeah, the boys. Freaks you out to look at yourself live, eh?
It does, it really does.
Tell me that name, Major Steez. I like it. It's interesting. It's different. Wow, where does the name come from?
The name, we came up with it about 2 years ago when we started the group, you see. We came through, like...
You have to use the mic. You're working with the mic, man.
We came through a lot of names first, right? And then when we came up with the name and he joined about a month later, we just stuck with it because it sounded nice to him as well, so yeah.
No, I like the energy that you guys bring. I think it's fantastic, and it's got a nice up-tempo beat. But where do you guys want to go? 5 years from now, Kyle, where do you want to be?
5 years from now, well,
Don't tell me you want to be
on a really global status, you know. I want to be performing all over the world and just showcase South African music and African music as a whole, you know, because I feel like South African music and African music has grown so much and has come in leaps and bounds over the time. So I think we're doing very well.
And what sound would you guys really like to culture going forward? In what sort of genre would you like to see yourself?
Like, as you know, right now we're busy doing hip-hop, and we've been doing hip-hop for the past years that we've been in the game, but we'd like to venture into other sounds like house and...
Yeah, house is the sound of today, isn't
it?
Everyone's doing house music. Well, anyhow, this is Major Steez They are fantastic. Have a look out for them. I think you can get this stuff. It's on screen somewhere. But let's play out. Let's play out with Party Time. We love it in the morning.
SABC News.